Back in 2018, the US government reached an agreement to allow .com prices to increase by as much as 70% over the next decade, and this is after prices have been frozen since 2012. It took a while for this to kick in, but the price increases are here, and this is just the beginning. The precedent set by the US government shows that they may allow astronomical price increases in the future, and this is something that could affect your business or your bottom line, especially if you have a lot of domain names. So in 2020, ICANN officially authorized these changes to the contract with Verisign, giving them the authority to start increasing prices for domain names. And on September 1st, 2022, the wholesale price for a .com domain is going from $839 a year to $897 a year, up 7%. While this price increase on its own is not that significant and not going to break the bank, this is more about the big picture of the future of the domain industry. But wait a minute, who is ICANN and who is Verisign, and what does wholesale pricing even mean? We all get our domain names from a domain registrar. These are companies like GoDaddy, Namecheap, or Porkbun. And while you can't actually own a domain outright, you lease a domain from these companies. And that's why you pay a renewal fee every year to keep your domain name going. Now you may be asking, wait a minute, how do companies like GoDaddy and Namecheap and Porkbun all sell the same domain names? How can I buy abc.com at all three of these places? Where's the consistency here? Well, these providers are actually leasing the domain name from the registry. What is a registry? Well, it's basically a database of a TLD, or top-level domain. This is the domain extension like .com, .net, or .org. So every domain extension has its own registry. The .com registry is run by a company called Verisign. Verisign has a huge database of all the .com domains to ever exist, and it has instructions on where each .com domain is pointed. So you might be wondering, wait a second, Christian, if a company like Verisign gets to maintain the .com database, who decides that they have the right to do that? After all, maintaining a TLD registry is very lucrative. There's a lot of money to be had in doing this, especially for a massive mainstream TLD such as .com. So who makes this decision? It's actually a nonprofit organization called ICANN. ICANN is responsible for coordinating the maintenance of these domain databases to ensure the internet's stable operation. Companies are awarded contracts to have sanctioned monopolies on TLDs, and in the case of .com, it's Verisign. So what does this all have to do with the price increase? Well, in 2018, the US government extended its contract with Verisign to allow them to have the sanctioned monopoly and exclusive access to run the .com database. Only there was one significant revision in this contract renewal. It gave Verisign the right to increase .com pricing by 7% per year with 2-year freezes every 4 years. This was very significant because .com pricing had been frozen since 2012. There was just one problem. See, ICANN, that organization we talked about earlier, still had to approve these changes for Verisign to be able to increase prices of .com domains. But guess what they did? They ignored over 9,000 public comments urging ICANN to stop these changes, and they just rammed it through anyway. Why? Well, because ICANN wants to maintain a good relationship with world governments, and since the US government already reached a private agreement to allow these changes with Verisign, ICANN was basically going to sign off on whatever the US government said was okay, and they weren't interested in reviewing any of the public comments. They really wanted to just maintain their status as the organization responsible for maintaining all these databases, and that means they pretty much have to do whatever the US government wants. Verisign implemented the first price change on September 1st, 2021, bringing the wholesale price from $785 a year to $839 a year. And guess what? Exactly 1 year later, on September 1st, 2022, they're increasing the price again from $839 a year to $897 a year, raising the price by another 7%. And you might be saying, so what, Christian? Is this really that big of a deal? .com wholesale pricing is up a little over $1 versus 2 years ago. $1's not gonna break the bank. But keep in mind, this is just the price increase to the wholesale pricing, or the cost that domain registrars like GoDaddy, Namecheap, and Porkbun have to pay. They all mark these domains up and charge a profit, so the price increase that you're likely to see is going to be even more than the $1 that Verisign is making. But still, for right now, this is not that big of a deal. Maybe you're going to pay $1.50 more per year for that .com domain than you did 2 years ago. It's not going to break the bank, but we have to look at the bigger picture of what's happening in the domain industry. What is going on with TLD price regulation? Is it just .com? Is it other TLDs? Can we use other options out there that are safer, or can any domain just skyrocket in price over the years? Well, it's other TLDs too. In 2019, ICANN removed all price regulations for the .org TLD. Instead of saying you can raise the price by 7% a year or even 10% a year, they just said, you know what, you can charge whatever you want for .org domains. There's no regulation. If you want to start charging $3,000 a year tomorrow for this, go right on ahead. And PIR, the company currently running .org domains, so far has not increased the prices by much, and they said they're committed to keeping the pricing more affordable. But the .org registry was recently in talks of being acquired by a different company, and that company flat out said that they would increase .org pricing by 10% a year in perpetuity. This means that 30 or 40 years from now, the price of a .org domain would be ridiculous. And other TLDs are seeing massive price increases as well. For example, in 2017, the .hosting TLD went from about $20 a year in wholesale pricing to $300 a year in one price increase. The price went up by 1,400% in one price change. ICANN says they're in favor of removing price regulations on TLDs ever since they started accepting applications for new TLDs in 2012. You may remember a time when the common domains were .com, .org, .net, you know, all the classic domains you're used to seeing. But somewhere along the lines recently, we started seeing this huge flood of new domains like .media, .xyz, .wiki, all these cool, trendy TLDs that are a lot of fun to implement with your brand. We've seen all these TLDs pop up because ICANN started accepting new applications, and at the time in 2012, they said that they weren't going to impose any price regulations on these new TLDs, and for a good reason. Running a domain registry is very expensive. It takes a lot of capital investment up front, it is very risky, and there's a good chance that your new TLD is going to fail and you're not going to be able to afford to even stay in business. So if you're going to launch a new registry, you need to have a lot of money. And to be fair to all these entrepreneurs that were putting their capital on the line, ICANN said, you know what, we're not going to put any price regulations in place. If you want to launch .hosting, go ahead. You can charge whatever you need to charge for it, and we're just going to let the free market dictate what people are willing to pay for your domain names. And here's the thing, this argument actually makes a lot of sense for new, trendy TLDs, but they're trying to apply this same logic to classic TLDs like .com and .net, saying, well, since we're not regulating the price on all the new TLDs since 2012, why should we be regulating pricing on old TLDs? We want to standardize all of our contracts with registries and just remove price regulations altogether. But TLDs like .com and .net have a significant advantage. They have volume, and they have a TLD that everybody wants. Let's be honest, at the end of the day, most people own a .com domain, or they buy a .com domain because it's common and everybody knows it, and this is basically the domain extension that we all assume as standard. So Verisign is not exactly hurting for money. In fact, their annual revenue in 2021 was $1.32 billion, with a net profit margin of 59%. The reality is, Verisign doesn't need to make more money. This looks like a case of corporate greed, and like Verisign is just looking to increase their profit margin without having to sell more domain names. The domain market is very saturated, and I can't imagine the overall number of .com domains is increasing that much. It's likely plateaued, so this is pretty much the only way that Verisign can increase revenue going forward. It's really the true definition of a monopoly. So how can you protect yourself from these crazy price increases? Well, the reality is the .com TLD is probably unlikely to surge to $300 a year overnight, but other TLDs may potentially see big price hikes like .hosting, and in general, if you want to make sure you have the best price on your domain name for as long as possible, you can actually renew your domain name for up to 10 years at a time with the current pricing. And by the way, make sure you renew your domain name at a quality registrar. If you're using something like GoDaddy, it's time to stop. They're charging way too much of a markup. You don't need to be doing that. Look at a registrar like Porkbun or Cloudflare Domains. I like Porkbun, they're a great value registrar and they give you just about everything you need to maintain your domain name, or you could go to a place like Cloudflare Domains if you want to purchase domains at wholesale pricing with no markup. But beware, there are some gotchas and limitations to Cloudflare Domains, so be sure to check out my domain registrar comparison video over here. The other thing you can do to be forward thinking is to invest in NFT domains. These Web3 domains are a new type of domain that you can buy once and own it outright. It's actually stored in your crypto wallet, so there's no company that has control over your domain. You don't have to lease it, you pay for it once, you store it in your crypto wallet, and you have it forever. Once again, there are some gotchas to this avenue. NFT domains are currently very limited with what you can do with them. You can only access them in certain browsers. In some cases, you have to modify your DNS settings on your computer to even be able to pull up NFT domains, and you're very limited to where you can connect them. It's not super easy to point it to web hosting right now. I have a whole video taking a look at NFT domains that you can check out here, but definitely beware that NFT domains aren't ready for mainstream use yet. But it may be worth investing in an NFT domain and buying one that corresponds with your brand now, because remember, you pay for it once, you own it forever, and the price of NFT domains can really only go up over time. Think about if you do both of the things I just mentioned. If you renew your current domain name for 10 years because you know you're going to be using it for that long, and you buy an NFT domain, there's a good chance that NFT domains are going to be ready for the mainstream in the next decade. A company I've used before to buy my NFT domains is Unstoppable Domains. They have a great website. You can browse through several different TLD equivalents in the NFT domain space, and you can buy your domain starting at, I think, around $20. And remember, that's a one-time fee. If you'd like to renew your domain before the next price increase, you have 2 days to do that as of the release of this video, and I'll have my domain registrar comparison linked below so you can decide the best place to do that. If you like this video, do be sure to hit that subscribe button and click the bell so you don't miss future news like this. With that said, I'll catch you guys next time.